high fans of high quality entertainment. I think I've done this kind of idea before, but I'm doing it again. It's been a few years since I did this kind of idea. And there's different bands I'm probably going to be talking about. So this is a list of 10 bands that at one point I would say, a pretty big fan of, but it didn't last. And some of the bands I still have, some of their CDs in my collection, but, at some point I just, for whatever reason, I gave up on them. And, in the comments section below, I would like to know what are some bands that you were, a pretty big fan of, and then you just lost interest in them for whatever reason. So some of these bands, it might have been I was a big fan for like a year or two, and some other ones, a little longer. And there might be a couple of these bands that I dislike now, but overall, I like most of them, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So in no particular order, in the early 70s, I was kind of obsessed with this band. It was, or is, Uriah Heep. The first album I ever heard of theirs was The Magician's Birthday, which I do have. And I really loved that, so I became a fan. And then I went back and I bought Demons and Wizards, and I love that one even more. So I was a huge Uriah Heep fan for, like I said, in the early 70s. And then the Uriah Heep Live, the double album, came out, and because of my age, I was 58, 69, 70, I was like 13, 14 years old. I didn't have the money to buy it, and I really did want to get it, but I never ended up buying it, ever. And then, and Sweet Freedom, their next album, I never bought. But I did buy later on, in the early 70s, I bought Wonder World, which was just okay. I wasn't that impressed with it. And then Return to Fantasy. I love the song Return to Fantasy, but the rest of the album was mediocre for me. And the last one I ever bought was High and Mighty, which was also just okay. But it's cool that, they're still making records, and I've heard some of their more recent albums, and they sound good. Mick Box is still, the only original member, and he's still plugging away, so good for Uriah Heep. Now, this is I'm not sure of the time, but the early 2000s, I guess. I became a big fan of the Arcade Fire with their album Funeral. Although it was only, I would say maybe half of the album I absolutely loved. Wake Up and 3 or 4 of the other songs. The other half were good. I liked them, but I thought I was going to, always be a fan of theirs. But that didn't turn out to be the case. Their next album, Neon Bible, I bought, and I liked it. But then after that, The Suburbs I bought, and then Reflector, the double album, and they were good, but I don't know, I just fairly quickly lost interest in the band. Now we go back to the early 70s. With Kiss. That's right. When their debut album came out, I'd never heard the music. They weren't on the radio or anything. I just read about them in magazines. And one day I saw their debut album in the record store, and I bought it, not knowing if I'd like it or not. And I absolutely loved it. But their follow-up, Hotter Than Hell, is, I should do a video of the most disappointing albums. Follow-up albums. Hotter Than Hell was really disappointing. The production was terrible. Maybe some of the songs were good, but I couldn't get past the production, even though I didn't have a great stereo system. But it didn't sound very good. And then Dressed to Kill, which was much better produced. It was good. Kiss Alive, the double album, I absolutely loved that. And the last album I ever bought of theirs was Destroyer, which I kind of liked, but by that time I was kind of over them. So I'm not much of a Kiss fan now. I have their debut album and that is it. Now we go to the mid-70s and the Tubes. I bought their debut album, of course, White Punks on Dope, but I love the whole album. I have that. And I actually have their first 3 albums, Young and Rich, which I loved, and Now, which was a bit more experimental, but I really like that one. They did have a live album, which I don't have, What Do You Want from Live, which was excellent. But then after that, they went a bit too commercial for me. Their next one was Remote Control, which I think I did buy, but I didn't keep it for very long. Produced by Todd Rundgren. And then, later on they had hits like She's a Beauty and Talk to You Later, and I just had no interest in that. But I love the early years of the Tubes. As some of you know, Glenn Kellaway from the Basement and I have started up our CD exchange again. I gave him an album by the band Wire. I love the first 3 albums. Pink Flag, Chairs Missing, which is the one I gave him, and 154. And then I think they broke up for a little bit. They got back together. I never bought the Ideal Copy. I don't think I've still heard it. And A Bell is a Cup Until It Is Struck. But I did buy It's Beginning to and Back Again, and except for the first song, Finest Drops, which I still love, the rest of the album I didn't care for. But, I should go back and check them out again. I know they have a lot of albums, and some of them I've listened to on Spotify, and they sound pretty good. So, and it's still 3 of the 4 original members in the band. Now, I wasn't a fan of this group for very long. Emerson, Lake and Palmer. The first album I bought of theirs was Pictures at an Exhibition, which was a live album, and I don't think I would even like it today, but back then I was a bit confused by it, I guess. It was totally different than anything else I'd ever heard, and so I never really ever got into it. But Brain Salad Surgery was awesome. So, and also the song Lucky Man I loved, but I never bought their earlier albums. And then The Works came out, which was a double album, I believe. I never bought the live triple album, but yeah, The Works I think was a double album, and I did not care for it, so I stopped buying albums by Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Once again, a band, I loved their early stuff, and then they kind of went a bit more commercial, and I lost interest in them. Devo. I have their first 3 CDs or albums. Question, Are We Not Men? We Are Devo. Duty Now for the Future, a great follow-up. And Freedom of Choice with their big hit, Whip It. And then I don't have it now, but at the time I bought New Traditionalists, and it was good, but they were getting more and more pop, I guess. Not as much guitar work, or maybe no guitar work, from what I remember. And yeah, I lost interest in them, but like I said, I love their early works. This might be embarrassing to say, but at one point in my life, I was a fan of Aerosmith. Yeah, their album Toys in the Attic. I bought that around the time it came out and I loved it. I still do. It's my favorite album by Aerosmith. I never bought Rocks. No reason, I just never ended up buying it, I guess. And then I skipped a few albums and I bought Permanent Vacation, which at the time I loved. So I was a fan again, went back, started buying their albums. Pump, which was very good, and then Get a Grip. They're getting more and more commercial, and after that I lost interest in them once again. Yeah, their final studio album, Music from Another Dimension, they do one song with Carrie Underwood. Can't Stop Loving You. Oh boy. 2 to go. Ramones. When their debut album came out, I ran to the store and I bought it. Once again, I did not know if I would, no idea what it would sound like, but brought it home and I loved it, and I still do. I have Ramones, their second album, Leave Home, which I also love, but out of all of their albums I've heard, their debut is my favorite. Just the way there's a guitar on one side, bass on the other, and drums in the middle. I love that. And Rocket to Russia, which I have. And then the only other one I bought was Pleasant Dreams, which features Russell Mael of Sparks singing background on one of the songs. And I also do have now Ramones It's Alive, the box set with 4 CDs, which is awesome. But yeah, I mainly love early Ramones. And much like Uriah Heep in the early 70s, this was another band I was a huge fan of, but not for, I guess for 2 or 3 years maybe. Black Oak, Arkansas, if anybody remembers them. Their big hit was Jim Dandy. I first bought High on the Hog, which was their 4th or 5th album. Then I bought Raunch and Roll, their live album, which I loved. But their follow-up to High on the Hog, Street Party, I was really disappointed in. It was okay, I guess. But I kept buying their albums. Ain't Life Grand, which was so-so. X-Rated was kind of a comeback album. I really loved that one. And then after that, I bought one more live album, Live Mother, which was so-so. And after that, I lost interest in them. So, yeah, not every band that I become a fan of, like Sparks, I continue being a fan of. And I'm sure it's the same with you, Some bands, they just have it for a while, and then whatever, they go too commercial or they change their sound. Sometimes it does work. For instance, with the Sparks, they did change their sound, but I stuck with them because I loved everything that they've been doing, or that they were doing. And that is it. I would love your thoughts in the comments section below. What are some of the bands you were a fan of and you no longer are? Or, you're only a fan of 1 or 2 or 3 of their albums. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.